This is going to be Zach. Hello, Zach. You're up last.
Hey Bart, how's it going?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Good, man. Oh, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
I'll get right into it.
Okay.
This is a home game in the Southeast United States. Prefer to keep the kind of location sort of incognito, but
Is it in the Carolinas?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I think about the Southeast. Must be Georgia. But okay, so home game. Okay.
Yeah.
Home game South.
But
In the SEC conference though?
correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Getting more and more specific. But it's one of these games that we've been playing online since COVID.
Oh,
So
okay.
even
Okay.
though it's a home
So it's
game,
like
it
an app
kind of
game.
explains some of the weird bets. But blinds are $2, $4, a bit shorthanded at this time of the night, so 5 players.
Mm-hmm.
And pre-flop action. So I'm in the effective cutoff, and I raised to $10 with 10 of hearts and king of hearts.
So is that basically like almost like under the gun?
Essentially, yeah, I'm the first act.
All right. So King of Hearts, 10 of Hearts.
Correct.
All right. So here in the cutoff / UTG, playing 5-handed with King of Hearts, 10 of Hearts to how much?
$10.
To 10. Okay. Okay.
Then the button folds.
Mm-hmm.
Small blind calls.
Mm-hmm.
And then the villain, who is the big blind, calls.
Okay, so you get a kind of a little bit of a, well, not so weird maybe for an online app game that the small blind is cold calling. That's usually should be a 3-bet or fold type of spot in a 5-handed game. But okay, so it looks like it's $30 to the flop. Okay.
Correct.
Uh-huh.
And then the flop is ace of hearts,
Mm-hmm.
3 of hearts,
Mm-hmm.
and 8 of hearts.
By the way, I forgot to ask how deep you guys were at the start too.
Oh, yeah, sorry. The effective stack is $574
So
with the
574 effective. Okay.
with the villain, and I slightly cover him.
So just over 100 BBs, but it looks like you are kind of using smallish online sizing because you're only opening to 10, which is 2.5x. So it will be deeper than an actual live game in terms of post flop here because you're not like opening at like 20 or 25 or something like that because the pot's only $30 three ways. So you flop the nut.
Yep.
King 10 of hearts, ace 3 8 all hearts. Okay.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then action here is the small blind checks.
Mm-hmm.
Then the villain of the big blind bets $31.
Ah, so another donk. I forgot this is a full pot donk lead. So he's going to donk into you for full pot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
On a monotone board, which I
Yeah.
thought was interesting. So at this point, trying to keep the small blind in, I decided to just call.
So Hero, we'll talk about this here at the end of the street. So Hero calls, okay, and what does the small blind do?
And unfortunately, he folds.
So I don't know if you caught the last call or 2 calls ago with Josh. We were talking about this. Like I said, we did this whole thing with donk bets. I mean, everybody's initial gut in this spot is, oh, well, I'm just going to call, like I have the nuts. Old school sort of COP stuff would also say, one of the very first like social media posts that I put out way back in the day was, as sort of counterintuitive as it seems, fast playing a flop nut flush will sometimes get you the most amount of money because you will get action from inferior second best hands. Whereas if you suddenly wake up on a later street, then a hand as strong as like the second nuts will sort of go into a check call show. What's interesting about this though is that you are facing a full pot donk. So when we talked about what do large donks represent, we usually talk about like 2-pair set, something. I mean, it could be like a small flush, something like that, not just like an ace trying to figure out where they're at. So for those reasons, when I see a large donk like this, I would seriously consider raising because I don't think your opponent's going to large donk fold. Like when he goes 31, you can go to like 75, 85, 90, something like that. It's going to be very, very infrequent unless, there's a reason why you call this guy that he's going to fold. And it sort of guarantees the fact that you're going to get the money in because when you said, well, I want to get the small blind to call. So when this guy makes a huge, large donk on a monotone board and then you call, the small blind's going to have a really, really strong hand to continue, right? To an overcall, to a pot size bet, and a call. He didn't 3-bet off pre. He shouldn't have a ton of large aces. So, and the board's not all that disconnected. So That's why I would go after the large donk, and I'd be more concentrated on that guy than trying to get the small blind to call behind, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So call, and the pot is what, just maybe here, maybe like $91, something like that, right?
Yep,
Okay.
that's what I have.
Yep.
And then the turn comes, and it's the ace of spades.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because you flop the flush, and we start to think about what are the hands that people large donk with? We just said two pair, right? Some two pair and
Yep,
some sets. Then the boat is out there now, you know. So
yep.
we
So you
have
have
to
to
be
just
a little bit
be a little
cognizant of
cautious.
that.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yep.
Well, you'll see what I do here. So small blind checks. I'm sorry, the big
Big blind
blind is
checks.
the villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, checks.
Hmm.
Then I bet about 69. Then the villain calls the $69.
Interesting. I don't have a problem with your bet. It's just interesting that the big blind checks on an ace because, again, what are the hands that he's throwing out there for a large donk on the flop? Sets, smaller flushes, maybe some two pair, maybe once in a while, like an ace jack type of holding. It's surprising to me if he actually has that ace plus high heart combo, like ace jack, ace with the jack of hearts, or ace queen if he did flat that and didn't three bet it with the queen of hearts, that he would check an ace here on the turn, right? Because you led the large donk and then you called, and now all of a sudden he hits a card that improves him somewhat if somehow he was behind. So that's very interesting to me that he has checked here. I'm not saying that I would check it back, but it's interesting to me. I might have actually taken somewhat of a smaller sizing, but it will be interesting to see how this one plays out. So you go 69 and he calls. You put 138 in, so now the pot is probably 229, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
229. Okay.
Yep, that's about what I have.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So going on to the river.
Mm-hmm.
The river is the six of hearts.
Yeah. Curtis King saying a check is more suspicious than a bet. Yeah, that's really weird. Okay, so six of hearts. So this is another reason why, even if you are up against flush, well, this is a really very interesting card for you because it puts a four liner out there. But let me say a couple things here. Is another reason why I like to get money in a lot of the time with sort of flop not flushes is because, yeah, if you're up against another flush, there's only seven cards left, right? But if you're not up against another flush, you're up against a different hand that would give you some action. There's still nine of the suit that can come out as a one liner, and then you also have board pairs too. So when you take a look at, and I think that people will agree with me in PLO, when you take a look at a monotone board with two cards to come, I would say there is about a 75% chance with two cards to come on a monotone board that the board will either pair or roll out with a fourth suit. That would be if someone doesn't hold, let's say, and that's assuming someone holds a flush. Like if you flop a flush, so there's only nine suits cards left, then there's probably 70 to 75% chance that the board's going to pair or another one of the suit is going to come out, even with you holding two of the suit, because it's 9 out and 8 outs on the flop for the board pair, and then it's 9 outs and then 10 outs on the turn. So maybe it's a little bit less, maybe it's 65%, but it doesn't surprise me here. Here you get a situation where the board pairs and also you get a fourth flush card. And what's bad for you now too is that if the guy actually happened to flop a smaller flush than you, now you look like you have a high heart, or you could have a high heart here. So it's worse for him to call down, right? It's not a great run out for you.
No, this is about as bad as it
Yeah.
gets for the nut
And
flush.
to the point here where I gotta be honest with you, and I am all for thin value. I don't remember specifically what happens here, but if he checks the river here, I'm seriously going to consider checking it back for those reasons of I thought that there was something fishy on the turn, and now the range of hands that you get called by are actually lessened to the point where I might consider checking this back here on this four flush run out with top pair being paired and him checking turn. So
Yeah,
what happens
that
here?
makes sense.
Yeah.
So villain checks, and then thin value mode. I bet 116.
So hero goes 116, which is about half the size of
About
the
half
pot,
pot.
right?
Yep.
Because remember, you got to find like the queen or you have to find the queen or the jack of the hearts here that's going to call you, right? And again, it's somewhat incongruent to me because the hands that take this line that contain the queen or the jack of hearts for the most part are going to be ace queen or ace jack, not flop flushes, because I don't think that they slow down on the turn with a check call. So those are the most common hands that have the queen or the jack in it. And I still don't think that those hands check the turn because they make trips, right? So
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. So you go 116, okay?
Um, Villain thinks about it for a little bit of time, and then ends up shoving for 460 or so.
So big blind shoves for 460 or 416.
Sorry, 460.
I mean, it's going to be pretty easy for me to say that this is somewhat of a trivial fold to me. I'll give you the reasons why. First of all, we can take a look at some pot odds here. So it looks like it's after the 116. It's like 345, and then he's shoving another 460. So it's probably like it's probably right around 800, maybe like 340, 350 or something like that for you to call. If I'm doing it right, you're probably getting just over 2-1, but a couple things going on here. It's a 4 flush run out and the board is paired. So it's very, very easy for anyone to have the nut flush. So usually boards are under bluffed when anyone can have a 1 card flush on a 4 flush run out. We talked about how I thought it was very strange. The whole line here on the turn. The only time I ever see this as a bluff is at the super high stakes. I've seen like Andy do it to Garrett. I've seen like Art Papazan do it once or twice, where somebody will turn naked trips into a bluff. And it's usually on 4 flush runouts where like they have trips and they know that it's probably better to raise to try to represent a boat than to call down on a 4 flush runout. Again, I find that very, very unlikely in this home game at this level. So that's kind of my
Yeah.
take.
Yeah, it's a good take.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
right away, my instinct told me to fold, but the other part of it was I thought he was capable. I played a little bit with him, and I decided to turn my hand into a bluff catcher, and then I ended up making the call.
So before you do a reveal, did Junior It in the live chat says, what about an overplay here? Overplay of what though? Remember, that's the thing. Like it's a 4 flush runout on a paired board. His opponent is not check jamming all in for value with the Queen of Hearts. You know
No,
what I mean?
no, I was thinking it was air that he was making
Yeah.
a pretty sick play with, or I was just beat. So
Remember though, he check called the turn though, so he has to have something.
yeah,
All right, so hero calls, and what's the reveal?
and then he had eight of diamonds, ace of clubs for full house.
Ace 8.
Yep.
Top 2 into a boat. Again, large donk. Top 2 into a boat. Obviously, you got unlucky, but I think you can see that it's a disaster. So let's say let's say that let's say we reverse what came on the turn in the river, meaning that, you played it the same way. And instead of the turn being an ace, the turn was a 6 of hearts. That's why I like to raise the flop, because I can almost guarantee you're going to get action from ace 8. But by calling, if you rolled one of the 9 cards that sort of rolled off, you sort of lose the action. Now, if he checks to you on an ace 3 8 6 of hearts run out, he might not even call a bet. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why I like to build a pot up with nuts on flop flushes, and then we have this extra added wrinkle that he's donking large into you, where he's probably not going to fold. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
All good points. I just want everybody to learn from my mistakes. And
no problem.
as soon as it happened, I was like, I got to type this up and send it in.
No problem. Street Soul Lover says, I really don't understand Villain's check on the turn. Villain, because he's slow playing the nuts. I mean, yeah, it's not the best line for value, but it's not surprising, right? He thinks he's invulnerable. He's got ace 8. The board's ace 3 8 ace. I knew it was strange when somebody takes a large dong and our hero flopped the nut flush and the turn's an ace, and then the guy check calls when the ace pairs. There's got to be some alarm bells that go off. But thank you very much for the call, Zach, on short notice. I appreciate it.